The Hail Varsity Radio Saturday morning show. Strap yourselves in. Here are your hosts, Chris Schmidt.
Y'all don't even know he was a virgin until he's 28, and now, roll tide.
And Mark Cranack.
Time has come for someone to put his foot down. And that foot is me.
Welcome to it. Weekend editions here. It's Hail Varsity. We're powered by Cornhead Lager, Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel. Mark Cranack is on assignment. Cranack will be back and ready to go. Fellas, ladies, 2 weeks. 2 weeks. And we're ready to go. Nebraska, UTEP, 3 weeks. Prime and the Buffs. And away we go with 2024. We'll get our starting 5 shout-outs going here in just a short second. Walter, thank you for your patience. If you had 7:47 as the start time for the weekend edition, you win.
Really?
As
no,
we
didn't start till 7:49.
Was it 49?
49.
Okay, so 7:49 was the winner.
Quick math. It's 7:50 right now. We started 1 minute and 25 seconds ago. Yeah,
Okay.
7:49.
I guess from when we sat down, or I sat down because you were in studio. Big day today. Big scrimmage going on for Nebraska.
Not to derail the conversation here. Maybe that's what we should have the people in the stream chat bet on every single week. Not what time we start, but who makes us late. That could be the tiebreaker.
Who makes us late? Who was the last to sit down at what time?
Yep.
I've got to go shut off an alarm that's going nuts.
I can't even hear it.
Oh, you can't?
No.
Because Mama may sneak up behind me on camera and stab me in the neck because it's going and going and going. You don't hear it?
No, not at all.
Should we walk in? Should we walk into the dungeon?
No.
We might do that. Let's do this. Hold on. Let me take the. All right. Let's try this. Let's just walk this way. Let's walk this way.
I've never seen this. Okay, this is new.
I'm gonna go into the bedroom here.
Oh, I hear the alarm now.
Yeah. All right.
This is the funniest visual.
We might have to unplug the. We're gonna unplug it in the wall. Hi, sweetie. All right. Travel vlog. I'm gonna set the mic down here on whatever the hell this is. She has decor wise.
We are off the rails already here.
It's okay. We're good. There's no swearing or life threats yet from her. It's all right.
What a way to start the Saturday morning edition here.
Dude, it's second scrimmage. Got to be big. Got to be big.
Speaking of alarms, is that how we're going to transition into the Husker scrimmage? What's alarming you with this Husker football team? What do you want to know more about today?
Wow.
Ah.
Taught you well. Taught you nothing, obviously, but I mean, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. Always welcome to hang out with us. Weekend edition during the week, 4 to 6, Monday through Friday with Hail Varsity Radio Network, and then YouTube. The Hail Varsity YouTube. Like and subscribe. You're going to get all the post-scrimmage comments and intel with the good folks at Hail Varsity and Hurrdat Sports. So check that out as you'll hear and see the Rhule video. Coach will address things, I think, after 2. And that's probably the window there. Coach sat yesterday. Urban Meyer and Cowherd this week on Thursday. A nice parting 3 minutes on Nebraska football. Positive excitement for both guys that are pretty big in the college football on the national scene. But Also find and follow us on Twitter at H Varsity Radio. At Herbal Essence is where you find Elijah on Twitter. At Schmidt_radio for me, Chris Schmidt. Brandon Vogel going to join us here in about 10 minutes on Counter Read from Counter Read, counterread.com. Then the Iron Horse with us, Gary Sharp. We are at the Single Barrel on football Saturdays, on football Thursdays. Excited for that when you're coming into town for Big Red football. So make that a note for you this football season to come see us and come find us at the Single Barrel inside the Graduate. A lot of you have done that over the years. We can't thank you enough, but it is awesome. Great breakfast, incredible steaks, plenty of whiskey. And I think it's going to be a fun season, Elijah. At some point, we're going to have to go ink with our predictions. I think that is next Saturday.
Yes, I like that being the Saturday morning edition.
Saturday, we are going ink with our predictions.
I've done my full schedule preview, actually. Got the preparation done. Shout out to our friends, the Big Red Junkies.
Mm-hmm.
I shouldn't say forcing me to get my preparation done, but helping me along in the
nudging
my preparation done, nudging me along. Yes, I've completed each of my opponent previews for the 2024 season. I am sure by mid-September, I'll have to rip those up and throw them into a waste bin. Are they going to be right? Probably not, but do they feel right for now? Yes. So I have those done.
Oh, there's going to be elements of right and wrong for sure. It's just how far do they break one way or the other. Let's get our starting five shout outs. Big thanks to Tiger Shark Diver. He's in. This is your alarm speaking, Elijah. Tiger Shark is in. Elijah was not the problem this morning. Michael, good to have you in from North Carolina, Michael. Appreciate you. Eat beef. Thinking that we drank too many summer shandies last night. I think
he's saying maybe he drank too many shandies last night.
He was throwing that at us.
I've had that morning before where, whenever you have too many summer shandies the night before and now it's 6 a.m. and you can't sleep no more. I've been there.
Yeah, the old summer shandy / boulevard hangover is a special kind of hell.
Actually, Cornhead Lager doesn't make you hungover.
No. Mr. Erickson, have a good day. Mr. Erickson, thank you. Brent is in. Shane says, good morning, Husker land. Good for you, Shane. Thanks for checking in. Rick, you are right, Big Cat. 14 days for Nebraska. Rick says Nebraska will be 7-0. When they go to Columbus. We are going to be in Columbus. That'll be great. Rick also finishes up with the fact Nebraska's got a sledgehammer, a bazooka, a nut smasher, a gunner, a maverick. We have a whacker. We have a prince. We have it all. There we have it. Mr. Snitley, Jeff Snitley, good morning. Week 1 until life regains its meaning. Mr. Snitley, part of the Boulder Peace Treaty. Tommy is in, says, morning, gents. GBR, can't wait. Uncle Jimmy is in. It's too early in the morning for your favorite uncle. Charles is here. Charles, good to have you. Larry, good to have you in. Crazy Spider Adventures, back at it, along with Tim. Tim says, UTEP, please come to Lincoln now. Let's get it started. Stank Nooner says it's always 4th and 1. God love that take. That's pretty good. Brian says 14 days and counting until a red beer at the Single Barrel. Good work from you, Brian. Appreciate that. Jack, good to have you in. Says good morning. Walter, today is the last Saturday without college football. Ireland gets to entertain next Saturday. Trevor is here. Says Death Row is going to make some noise this fall. Black Hills Brennan is up. Walter says, what are the chances them being on time today? 0.0. It's funny. And Walter was right. Walter's right a lot. Kevin is in. Good to have you, Kevin. We'll get to more of your comments. Tuck, good to have you. There were no dog issues, Tuck. Thank you. I was doing some medicine and it ran a little long. And the German has been trying to get out since 6 a.m. So she has been trying to make her way out of the basement since 6 a.m. Steven is in, says Iowa still has bad corn. That's funny. Tiger Shark says it's not even 8 a.m. and I want some hot wings. And then Red Knight 79, briskets on the smoker. Red Knight, that's awesome. Can you send us a pic? Is there a way to do that, Elijah? Can you send a picture of the smoker / brisket Red Knight 79, and can we post it on here? Is that doable?
If the picture is emailed.
Okay.
To you and then forwarded to me, or to me, I can get it up on stream.
Or
a Twitter direct message could also work.
Okay. At Herbal Essence on Twitter.
Yes.
And then Elijah at hurrdatsports.com.
Yes.
Okay. Or at Chris at hailvarsity.com is where you go. So send us what you're smoking. That sounds bad. Red Knight 79. Give us a sneak peek for the entree later. How's that? Is that better? Okay, let's hit some springboard thoughts, I should say, for Nebraska. And the scrimmage, right? It's pretty important, Elijah. I mean, you had Rhule talk about it. You had the players this week hit on it. And then you had Satterfield discuss it as well. And I'm anxious to hear who wins the day. If I'm putting money down, defense will be still ahead. But what I think you want to see if you're a Nebraska fan is a day where the offense, where their top two units, you don't expect them to be perfect. You strive for it. But their top two units on offense, first and second team, are able to get some consistency running the football. They're able to protect a little bit better. So there's not a polar bear in the backfield every other snap, or Prince off the edge, or Lenhart, or you know what Nebraska has. You know how deep they are on that defensive line. And you want to see the receivers continue to challenge the secondary, and you want to see your quarterback play in those situations in a scrimmage, really get some good on good and take those wins and make it a thing that is real. Next Saturday, 2 Saturdays from now, Colorado week, Ohio State. You get what I'm saying. You take that practice and turn it into performance this season on Saturdays because of just how inept the offense was. And what is the offense gaining by going against a defense like this? Well, they're gaining valuable reps. They're gaining a chance to get better. They have to be playing at a high level to actually execute against this defense. And then they're presumably taking some confidence, aren't they? Like, okay, if we can do it against our guys, air quote, say this is a thought bubble from a Nebraska offensive player, then it's going to be okay, because there's not much better that you'll see during the season. That's the old adage, make Monday through Thursday the toughest part of the week, so Saturdays are easy.
Yeah, and I want to ask the question to you, Schmidt, as we're 2 weeks out from kickoff here. What position battles do you think are still up in the air? What position battles do you think are still going to have, I guess, an important day today in terms of what's going to shake itself out? As you're 2 weeks out, once you're a week out, I mean, you can't really scrimmage as much. Like 2 weeks out is the big one. What position battles do you think we still need some more clarity on? Because I look at left tackle, clearly. I think Corcoran is probably your presumptive favorite, but I think Gatula is still trying to make some noise. I think that's still yet to be decided. Running backs are probably going to be running back by committee, but you're trying to figure out still who's going to be that number one guy to step forward. You look at the cornerback spot opposite Tommy Hill, who's going to differentiate himself there. One of the safety spots might be up in the air, but I think most of the depth chart has probably worked itself out in terms of first string, second string as you're 2 weeks out from kickoff.
No, my top two spots for pole position and winning a spot is going to be left tackle and opposite cornerback. That's it for me. And you had a little bit more mention with Sierra Wright. I mean, he's somebody that has played quite a bit of football, and that's who you'd want to see kind of jump forward, even though he's a transfer and it's new for him. You want to go with freshmen at that opposite cornerback spot because you're going to get picked on a ton, which fine. But my number one area of interest is that left tackle. Is it going to be a healthy, confident Turner Corcoran? Is it going to be Segrin? Or is it going to be Gattulo? Those are your three bodies. And two of them are going into a redshirt freshman season. All right. They've been on campus 2 years. And then you've got 30 plus starts in a guy in Corcoran where you do turn to the vet. So who solidifies that left tackle spot? And quite honestly, from a pitch count standpoint, you're going to have Turner that'll practice, but from a scrimmage standpoint, you're not going to roll the dice and risk him getting hurt in a scrimmage. At least they didn't last week. That's what Rhule told us. So, all right, what strides do the other two guys make at left tackle? Because you had Malachi and you had Grant Bricks in yellow jerseys yesterday that were dinged up. So it's left tackle, it's Oppo cornerback. I think Emmett's your guy. I think Emmett Johnson's your running back. As the guy that'll be able to do most things for you on all three downs, if that's how we're going to break it down. Brandon Vogel is with us in the esteemed football office of one Brandon L. Vogel, the talented author, Dream Like a Champion, him and John Cook. Counterread.com. Vogues, we're talking about the scrimmage today, bud. Elijah jump in too. He asked me what position I'm looking at in circling. We'll let Vogues answer in a second on that. Are you at left tackle as well, Elijah?
I still look at that corner spot opposite Tommy Hill because of what looms week 2. Like, I think if you don't have your offensive line fully fleshed out week 1 against UTEP, I told you I've done my opponent previews. Their front 4 and their front 7 is not a worry with UTEP. There's a lot of inexperience along their defensive line. I think the offensive line, no matter who is out there at left tackle, is going to be fine against UTEP. I think what's more important is UTEP likes to throw the ball around. We know Colorado likes to throw the ball around in week 2. That's why I look at the corner spot as potentially being more important. I feel better about that spot, I will say, but I think it may be more important just with the types of teams you have coming to Lincoln in the first couple weeks of the season. UTEP's going to want to throw the ball around. Colorado's going to want to throw the ball around. Northern Iowa's going to want to throw the ball around. None of those teams are going to beat you by rushing for 150 or 200 yards in a game. They're going to beat you by throwing the ball around. I think you want to have that corner spot solidified. If there is still a rotation at left tackle, if you still want to see some more by the time UTEP comes to town, I think you'll be all right. I think you could probably do a rotation at that spot and be okay. It's important to get some cohesiveness along the offensive line, but I don't think two guys rotating is going to affect that if you have the other 4 spots locked down. So I look at that corner spot just considering what's going to be coming to Lincoln in the first couple weeks of the season. Teams that are going to want to beat you by throwing the football, you got to have that spot locked down. And I think it was really interesting what Jalen Lloyd had to say about Sierra Wright yesterday, calling him a guy that's really impressed in that defensive back room. And you wonder, can he step in? What are we, 2 months post him transferring to Nebraska, a little bit less? Is he going to be a guy that's going to be able to, first off, pick up the culture, pick up the system, pick up what these coaches are putting down, and to translate it onto the field and be a guy that can start for you week 1?
Vogues, does a guy who gets out of the USC secondary feel like he's been paroled? I mean, honestly, you make a jump from USC's defense giving up 37 a game, and that's an exaggeration, but USC scored 35 points a ball game last year with a Heisman-winning quarterback and the number 1 pick overall, and it wasn't enough 5 times. They went 7-5. So if you're Sierra Wright, you're like, dude, I'm coming to Tony White's defense. I get an NFL guy that is coaching me. Life is awesome. I don't have a guaranteed spot, but so be it. I don't know. What do you think here? We're diving into the importance of today for the second scrimmage. How you been? Thanks for the time.
Yeah, I've been doing all right. I mean, does it feel like parole? Maybe a little bit. Optimism abounds yet again for the Trojan defense. Lincoln Riley went out and tried to do what he could do to address like their big weakness the past 2 seasons. I mean, so Sierra Wright started most of that first Riley season. That defense was not good. So it's one of those classic cases of trying to weigh those two things against each other. But It'd be a surprise if he wasn't a part of this secondary. I don't know if he's going to win that job, from the start, but he's played Power 5 football or Power Conference football before. So you need guys like that if you're going to use a scholarship in the portal for them to be a part of things going forward. So I think he will. And to Elijah's point, I kind of liked the thought process of circling cornerback. UTEP's going to throw it a lot. They're gonna whoever goes out there and starts game one, like they're gonna make that guy tackle. And UTEP's pretty much modern spread with some like air raid principles, but they're also going to go up tempo. So it'll be a little bit of a challenge for somebody who's out there, even if it's right, who has experience. He'll still be doing it for the first time in a Nebraska Cornhuskers jersey.
And Brandon, a lot of people in the stream here alluding to Buford at corner. You think Buford's going to be the guy? I mean, right? I do think the odds-on favorite, I think, to start game one right now is Buford, but I do think it's probably still up in the air. You have Bly Hill coming back from injury, Sire Wright coming on strong, plus Buford. I agree with the folks in the stream, and there's a couple people that have said Buford's going to be the guy. I agree he's probably my odds-on favorite right now, but I don't think that job is locked up by any means.
No, I don't think it is, and I would agree. If we were placing bets now, I'd put my money on Buford to take the first snap against UTEP in 2 weeks, but it's not going to be settled for a while. I mean, Tommy Hill played wide receiver for half the season last year, and he might be the best player on the roster entering 2024, depending on how you look at it. So it won't be settled. The Bly Hill piece of this is interesting. He was probably the leader there until he got injured in the spring game. How does he come back? And that was going to be interesting anyway. Even if he'd stayed healthy, you're talking about a guy jumping from FCS and not like the top end of FCS straight into Big Ten football. So it's going to be a position to watch the whole season in terms of Schmidt hit on the O-line. That's the other big one. I've still got an eye on kicker. What's going to happen at kicker? It's not the most exciting or funnest one to talk about, but in terms of points on the board, we saw last year, like it makes a pretty big difference.
Absolutely does. I mean, it's pretty fascinating. Kicker, corner, left tackle, running back. I do like what Nebraska has when we talk about Buford and his versatility and talent, plus just the dude's a grown-up. I mean, he is so mature that he's pretty vocal, like good dude from the few interactions we've had with him, Vogues. But this Chasing 3 has shown a different side of him where there's a whole lot of guys that are old on this team that are just sick of not winning, which sounds really obvious, but you have seen that emotion on camera, even during summer workouts. Hartzog, Giff, Singleton, it's a hell of a safety trio. I mean, it's nice. It is nice. And it's a luxury through some of that cross-training to be able to put Buford at that opposite cornerback spot. You have a few folks here in the stream. Melissa checks in, and her thought is you don't see Bly till Colorado if he's good to go there. But you have Bly teamed up with Tommy. You still have Sierra. You still have Tarver that's been making some noise. And Charles, bless his heart, just went down not long ago. So the theme isn't just chasing 3. The theme is all sorts of options for Nebraska football at a lot of different spots. I want to go to running back. Do you lean that Emmett's probably your best every down back right now for Nebraska?
Probably. I think based on what we've seen from him last year and what we hear coming out of camp, I mean, I think all those guys, you're not going to play 5 running backs, but maybe early on you will. You certainly hope to be in a game against UTEP where you can get all of those running backs a handful of touches. I've quickly become pretty modernized in terms of what we look at running back, and I see a group of at least 4 guys who can all contribute. One of them will end up getting the bulk of the carries probably, but there's going to be enough to go around that I expect Nebraska to have 4 running backs over the course of most games. And it'll be one of those where if the running game's working, you'll be like, Dante Dowdell just popped up with a nice 24-yard run. I think it'll be one of those sort of scenarios for Nebraska in 2024.
It's Brandon Vogel with us here. And Brandon, one of the things that Marcus Satterfield talked about yesterday when he met with the media was he was asked about Dante Dowdell, and he said, yeah, he's bust off a couple of nice runs. He's a guy that once he gets into the second level, defensive backs don't want to tackle him. He's a bowling ball moving downhill, to paraphrase what he's saying here. Like, that's not a guy that defensive backs want to tackle. But he also very specifically brought up pass protection from Dowdell, saying he seemed to have a better grasp of that and did a good job picking up blitzes over the past couple of days. How important do you think that's going to be in the running back battle? Because it's so easy to look at what a guy does with the ball in his hands, reading the blocks, hitting the hole, picking up 5 yards. But I think with what your offense might be this year, Dylan Ryle at the helm, I think pass protection might be important. How do you think that's going to factor into the battle for who's going to be running back 1 by the time UTEP's in town?
It's always pretty big, but I think for some of the reasons that you mentioned, and you add in, you lost a starting caliber left tackle. It makes it a little bit more important, and I think that probably determines who wins that job. Who's the running back you can just leave out there for a drive? Because I just got done saying they'll probably play 4 guys, which is great. But what you don't want to run into is being in situations. Well, you want to try to avoid it, I guess is a better way to put it. Where if Ramir Johnson's back there, it's like, well, there's your pass catcher, and if Dante Dowdell's back there and they're uncertain about his pass protection, then you're telegraphing to a defense they're probably going to run the football here. So I think that's kind of why I go back to Emmett Johnson too. I think there are other running backs in the room who might be better at specific parts of it, but he probably has the best overall rating, which would include pass protection. So I think that probably determines which guy you see out there the most.
Brandon Vogel's with us here. It's the weekend edition, Hail Varsity Radio at Brandon L. Vogel. Vogel's got some freshman names, freshman impact. Dylan Raiola, no shock there. Vincent Shavers, linebacker. Carter Nelson, Ja'Cory Barney, Keona Davis. What do you think of those 5? Are those 5 you had circled, aside from the quarterback? Are those 4 you had circled on signing day?
Yeah, Raiola was the starter pack that everybody got. I just gave that one to you. Like, here you go. Barney, I've been on. Well, I wrote kind of breakout performers, I think, going into the spring game, and he was in my group. So he's definitely in there. Shavers has been kind of a summer edition for me. Wrote about that a couple of weeks ago. He was one of the guys that I was buying stock in, and then the other 2 I think are kind of camp editions to a degree. So yeah, I think that's a pretty good group. I think if I'm being real honest, I would say I had 3 of them probably going into, maybe not going into fall camp, but after week 1 of fall camp. And one of them we all got for free. So
yeah, it's a fun freshman group where these guys you just don't want to keep off the field. You still have that 4-game option for most of them, but Keona's been getting a lot of run because he's coming in so ready built at 270. I mean, what a find from Washington. And back to the punt return choice. You watch Barney push for that.
Yeah.
I mean, Barney's a guy that they may let it say, go, dude, go until you screw it up. And Shavers too is nice. Elijah, you did a little research this week. We were talking, and we're going to bring that up today, just what Nebraska got on signing day with some of these freshmen.
Yeah, I mean, the 3 guys that we're talking about most, I'm going to leave Ja'Cory Barney to the side. Like, the 3 guys in terms of surprises that we weren't talking about really in the spring, we're talking about now. You look at Vincent Shavers, you look at Amari Sanders, and you look at Keona Davis.
Mhm.
All three guys that were signing day flips. I mean, Keona Davis originally signed with Washington, and then the coaching change happens and he decommits, and then you get him to flip on late signing day after a couple days before signing day. He's crystal balled to UCLA, so that's a massive coup to pull that one off. You look at Vincent Shavers. Vincent Shavers is another guy that kind of flew under the radar. We weren't talking about him, and then on signing day, Nebraska posts up Vincent Shavers is in. And you're like, oh, well, let's do some research on this guy, because that was a very quiet recruitment. You didn't hear much about it until signing day. You get the flip and you go, okay, another guy we have to do some research on. And then the last one is defensive back Amari Sanders, who I think Nebraska had been after him for a while. The recruitment was still pretty quiet. Some other Florida schools were hot and heavy after him, but then you also get the signing day announcement that he's in. Those are three guys I think we've heard a lot about through fall camp as being guys that have impressed. And I just think it's interesting that all three of them were not, I guess, crown jewels of your recruiting class. They're guys that you flipped or got into the boat really late in the process, signing day additions, and they're all showing out and impressing in their first fall camp.
Think about, I mean, Vincent Shavers is a dude that 9 times out of 10 is at Miami, right? I mean, he's just that, okay, kid played great high school football down the road from the U or from Florida or from Florida State. And that's where he's going to go. And kudos to Nebraska's Florida connections that aren't here anymore to get him. To get those, I mean, you're going to have three Florida kids not only contribute, but a couple may hammer down roles, because, you know, Amari's been mentioned as well as that opposite cornerback spot guy that's been in the running.
He's been brought up unsolicited by coaches and teammates a lot in fall camp.
Sure. Like, we're talking dudes that are just ready to go at a young age. And it speaks to, Vogues, just how high level Florida high school football is. Right? We know that, but it feels like everyone's a Levante David down there.
It also kind of speaks to sometimes the bit of a crapshoot that recruiting can be at times. You know, you never know what you get in a guy until he shows up on campus.
Yeah, who knew that they were playing football that well down there? I mean, but this does stand out as somewhat unique with those three guys. Like, if you get the signing day flips are good in February, because it you know, in today's recruiting world, like, it's kind of a forgotten day. Like, most of the time, any drama at all comes from those sorts of things. I think though, when guys flip that late, it's nice for the news cycle. Their ability to contribute becomes a little bit more hit or miss. You know, like, I haven't updated it in a while, but I kind of keep tabs on attrition probability. Was something I was trying to do at Nebraska, and now, like, with the transfer portal, it may not just matter. And like, guys that are committed longer tend to stay longer, is basically what I found at Nebraska. So those late signing day flips, like, you can get some really good players there. That said, they're also coming in later. It's noisy, I guess would be the way to put it. So for Nebraska to have those three guys, and for them to be for us to be talking about them 2 weeks out of, like, we think all of them could play, that's a pretty big development. That's a good recruiting job late in the cycle.
Vogue's big day today. I think it's today, isn't it? With David Sanders Jr. Is it 17th? Yeah. Okay. Carry the one. I know it was this weekend, but David Sanders Jr., Nebraska in the running, feels like Tennessee. But let's speak a moment to Nebraska's work on that 5-star. It's been about a month ago. It was the Mercedes-Benz Sprinter van that made its way to Lincoln. A lot of Husker fans showed out on a Friday night, and Nebraska got a late unofficial visit, and Dylan Raiola did his damnedest as a peer recruiter. Quick shout out to Clay Collier up there in Randy Gregory land. Clay, good to have you. Jerry Schmidt in as well. But with Nebraska, is this just a situation, Vogues, where, all right, so say that Sanders commits to Tennessee today. Is Nebraska completely out of it? Do they just turn their keys in and walk away? Or if Nebraska is at 7 or 8 wins in November, can they circle back to the top offensive tackle in the country and say, look, dude, there's wins here. Nebraska's in position in the Big Ten this season. What do you think? You don't have to sign till December.
Yeah, I think, he's a 5-star. We saw what happened with Raiola last year. And I think credit to the freshman quarterback for kind of, I think, prying the door back open there with Sanders. Like, it looked like he was headed to Tennessee, and then got him on campus, and we'll see what happens there. I don't think you turn your keys in. If you're Nebraska with this one, you wait it out. Like you said, winning some games can change things. I mean, a lot changes in college football. I mean, Tennessee's a team that's pretty interesting. Like, I could see they're not among the group that's getting a ton of playoff contention talk, but I think they could be. They've got to have a couple of things go right for them. But
young quarterback that's super talented. He's got to not turn it over. Like Nico's money, but is he injury prone, and is he ready to complete 70% of his throws with few turnovers? Right. I mean, that's where they're at.
Yeah, and I mean, and beyond that, so that, I think that is the big question mark there. They're really good at receiver. They've got some studs defensively, and anytime you have that, like, you got a chance to be pretty good. I think the reason Nebraska stays in this for the long haul, no matter what happens today, this might still be Raiola. Like, not to put, I mean, we're two weeks out, and not to jump to conclusions. Like, I'm never that, but Nebraska's gonna be favored by close to 30 points against UTEP. Like, if Dylan Raiola goes out and has just a 13 for 18, 2 touchdowns, 225 yards game, with the fact that Colorado's coming in the week after, it's going to be nuts. Like, in terms of where we go from Dylan Raiola hasn't played at Nebraska yet to, like, oh my gosh. And it's not going to take very much, I don't think. And I expect him to play well against UTEP. What if that continues throughout the season? Like, I do think if Raiola is Nebraska's starter and he looks like a good starter, it's going to continue to pay recruiting dividends for the Huskers.
It's Brendan Vogel with us here, Hail Varsity Radio, talking a little bit of recruiting with David Sanders Jr. announcing his commitment today. But Brandon, I also want to get into another 5-star, Michael Terry III. Sounds like he's going to be back on campus for a game at some point this fall. A lot of people have circled the Colorado game, but that isn't set in stone. Just with Nebraska's interest here from 5-stars, David Sanders Jr. and Michael Terry III, I want to go through your Husker Rolodex. Has Nebraska ever had a 5-star recruit in back-to-back recruiting classes? They get Dylan last year. If they were to pull one of either Michael Terry or David Sanders Jr., has that ever happened before? Because I'm going through my memory, and I don't think it has.
I don't think so. I have it all in a spreadsheet that I can look up at some point and let you know for sure. It would be close. I mean,
they had Marlin that was kind of borderline 5, Steinkuhler.
Yep.
And then there's Sue, and Sue was not a 5-star, but he was a really high 4-star. Those are the 3.
Yep. And that's what I was saying. It would have probably been Callahan era recruiting. And it would depend on, like, where you looked, with like a Baker Steinkuhler who was kind of on the fringe there. And then Marlon Lucky's kind of the one you can remember. But I mean, Nebraska doesn't get many 5-stars, period, much less kind of stockpiling a couple in back-to-back classes. So it would be an interesting development. Yeah, I wrote about this a couple weeks ago on Counter Read with the blue chip ratio. It's hard to see Nebraska like consistently living above that 50% mark. I mean, it never really has, but it's got momentum going into this year. Let's see how it comes out of it in 2024.
So I'm going to take it a step further here, as it's 2 weeks till kickoff. We're all passing the Kool-Aid around a little bit. It's okay. It's good taste Saturday morning. What happens if you get a staff that is incredible at getting the most out of a football player, talent-wise, development, mental toughness. What if you pair that with amazing, Vincent Shavers, for example, is like athletically ready to play college football now. What happens if you pair the talent with the mentality and the development, and it all hits?
I think it could be pretty powerful, and we don't talk about it a ton because we're so focused on where's Nebraska going from 5-7, and that makes sense. But I think if Nebraska starts having some success, Rhule's time in the NFL might come more into play in terms of recruiting. And if you can show, that, hey, here's some guys, we'll find out probably at the end of this year. Bryce Benhart is a guy who, when this staff took over, it was kind of like, well, highly touted guy. He's been your starter, but we need to see something more. Is he an NFL guy? I think he'll be an NFL guy. Thomas Fidone, he was injured twice. Nothing anybody could do about that. But if he goes off and goes to the NFL, Isaac Gifford would be another one. These are kind of some of Nebraska's pro prospects looking ahead to 2025, the 2025 draft, that is. So placing those guys, showing that you have gotten guys ready, and a couple of those cases, well, all of those cases I just mentioned, guys you didn't recruit, I think would be worth a little bit of a bump. And then you can hope to start parlaying it into getting your kind of guys, a guy like a Vincent Shavers, who's talented, highly rated. But, it's not like Georgia, everybody was on the doorstep there. You got to make a decision. What place gets you the most ready to do what you want to do? I think Nebraska has the potential to be that place.
Brandon Vogel with us from Counter Read. CounterRead.com is where you log on. Vogues, tell us about Counter Read, what you do, how you can get subscribed, and how awesome it's going to be with you and Aaron this college football season.
Yeah, I'm really excited for college football to get here, which is always the case, but now it actually feels close. So Counter Read's twice weekly newsletter on Substack. Subscribers get 2 exclusive newsletters. We do a couple of free things each week too, so people have a chance to check out what we're doing. Starting to move towards season mode, which includes one of my favorite things to do, preview football games. So we'll get started on that in a couple of weeks. UTEP's going to be a challenge though, with a new coaching staff and a ton of transfers. So that week 1's always a tough one. So sign up now and see what we turn up.
Love it. Vogues, appreciate you. We'll check in next week, man.
Sounds good, guys.
There he is, Brandon Vogel. He is the Iron Horse. Gary Sharp.
Good morning.
How we doing, man?
We're doing good. I just realized I got Grandma Dima's coffee mug that I'm drinking out of this morning.
The Christmas
It's okay.
Yeah, you know what? It's yeah, it is. I realized that this would be something that I would never buy. So
No,
I
but-
think when Grandma Dima decided it was to retire, and they cleaned out her house, I think I got this.
That's a big old mug. Look at, is that a 20 ouncer?
You know what? That might be like a 16.
Okay.
Good size.
Yeah.
I'm coffeeless this morning. I am out of Keurig pods. I did not get to the store, but I've got the Joe Papa first ever coffee mug it was Commercial Computer Systems, his company, but it was originally named Commercial Computer Leasing. So I have like the only CCL coffee cup in existence.
Oh, nice.
That I always fire up on Saturday mornings. And I have this giant pink coffee mug that screams bunny. I mean, it's on the side of it. So those are my 2 go-tos. So
I just remind you who you're married to.
I can't believe you're a Keurig man, Schmitty. You're hurting the environment like that. Be a man. Brew some real coffee. Brew some diesel.
Wow.
dude, it's convenience.
You know what? Elijah doesn't understand. This is about convenience. When you get a little bit older, you don't want to have to work for things. You have worked hard enough to get there. Now you just want convenience. Like we've all worked hard. So when you woke up this morning, I hope you looked to the football gods and said, thank you, we've almost made it, because this is it. This is the last Saturday that we will not have college football, professional football until 2025. So embrace it. Some might be, oh my gosh, you're going to be busy today. You got to get a lot of the honeydew stuff done. But next week, we have college football. And then 2 weeks from today, we have what will be very interesting, a very interesting start to a journey that nobody knows exactly where we're going.
That was a hell of a transition to football, by the way, Gary. That's why you're a pro. That was well done.
I'm trying to stick to sports, but if you guys want to go elsewhere, there's a guy that's going to be in our city in Omaha today. I could talk about that.
Yeah.
Not.
He runs a 4-4 defense. We'll dive into the intricacies of a 4-4.
I do miss, because I think it's a law now. Elijah, I think you're too young for this, but Schmidt will remember this. Remember when it was political season and all the politicians would hang outside of Memorial Stadium and they'd pass out the roster sheets that would have their campaign logo on it? Okay, yeah. And they were everywhere. Like
stickers and buttons.
Stickers, buttons, and the rosters. I remember that. And they would be out front and they'd be shaking hands and you'd be like, I just want the roster. Okay, just give me the roster. I don't know who you are. I can't vote for you anyhow. You don't live where I live, and just keep it moving. I miss those days, don't we?
Oh, there was an Army Vogue. Vogues does such a great job with his football coverage. The army of said candidate had the entire West Stadium blanketed. I mean, you couldn't walk 3 feet. You couldn't ever. This was you brought up a great memory. This was new West expansion. This was pre-98. So this is UCLA coming to town in 94. This is Washington in 91. They're like the night game. You had to rent lights so ABC could be here for a Saturday night affair, right? And what's happening outside Memorial Stadium as you make your way up to the old facade is somebody from Western Nebraska or Omaha or a candidate in Lincoln that wants to be the next mayor. They are there shaking hands, kissing babies, not shaking babies or kissing hands, but it was absolutely a thing. And it was the first 3 weeks and they all were. I mean, you wanted to see, quite honestly, an Anchorman showdown between all of them because they were within, 15 to 20 feet of one another. It was good. That's a good poll.
I'm pretty sure
great poll.
That didn't go away. I'm pretty sure until like post 2010. I remember early in the Bo years that was still going on.
Well, Nebraska football hasn't been the same since we got rid of the politicians outside of the stadium. Coke. Let's see, balloons.
The res,
which I'm a big proponent of. It's a 10-year anniversary of when the res had its final moment in the Miami game in 2014. Maybe we could have one night on September 7th. Okay, just open it back up, and then you can close it afterwards. But for those people that have not got to experience the res for 10 years, and they've had a lot of this built-up angst and partying, just let it out. And we promise that no buses will be tipped over.
That was incredible back with that Miami game. And it's just the
not the bus being tipped over.
Yeah. No, but the energy of the unleashing of said fury. But it's going to be similar. It's going to be similar with Prime and the Buffs coming to town 3 weeks from today.
Hey, can I throw in, a lot of us are anticipating what the Colorado game is going to be like. And it will be one of those games where Nebraska fans don't sell their tickets. You look at the get-in price, it's starting to inch up. And after that first week, when Colorado plays and Nebraska plays, I think it'll go even higher. And it's a night game. It's Dion. Warren Sapp will be back in the house. There's a lot of anticipation for Nebraska. That'll be a game where people don't sell their tickets. So we've all imagined what the atmosphere is going to be like. And we all in our mind have, hey, I was at this game and it was the loudest. I would like to put, and most of those games that you were at were either Colorado game or that Miami game in 2014, where it was super loud, but they ended up as wins. Can I make a submission for a game that I thought Memorial Stadium had one of the better atmospheres that didn't go Nebraska's way? The 21 Michigan game is very underrated on Memorial Stadium sounding like what Memorial Stadium should be like. The fans were engaged from the kick. I remember, Schmitty, you and I think Elijah, we might have all been together just outside of the stadium. And we were all like, man, this town's got a different vibe for this game in 21 against Michigan. People are excited. People are talking Husker football. I mean, it felt different. The stadium was rocking that night. It just didn't end up in Nebraska's way. I would like to submit that as one of the better one of the better atmospheres that Memorial Stadium's had in a while, to go along with those others that we've mentioned.
Sharpie, it had everything but the win if you're a Nebraska fan. And no, we did the tailgate from Gary Michael's tent that Saturday, because it was a night game. So that was an adventure. Sharpie shows up. Billy D was there. Oh, Elijah pulls up on the grassy knoll in his pickup with a generator so he can pull off doing a show where there's no power outlet in sight.
This is also one of the first times I ever met Gary. And I remember during a commercial break of the show, pregame, Gary finds one of the medical marijuana petitioner people and waves him down and goes, "This guy here, he's been telling me he wants to sign." He's and the pitch looks at me, "Thank you so much, man." And I'm like, I didn't know what to do.
That's funny. But no, that electricity was incredible. Nebraska was in their suit. They did their unity walk.
Yep.
Right by us, not far from, God, what was the history? The architecture hall where we were.
Yes.
We were set up was the south end of Stadium Drive, where it was a little circle before you get to that intersection.
There's been
of the parking garage
the past 6 months. A lot of construction there for like the past 6 months. We had college kid move-in season. We're moving.
How was that this weekend? Oh.
Well, it was the other day. So moving from a frat house to off campus, which basically the kid is going from living in a frat house, a rather nice frat house, but he's basically moving into a hotel. Okay, that's what it appears. I tried to tell him what my place was like at 26th and W, and he was having nothing of it. Every friggin' street in you guys' town is either under construction or closed. What is going on?
Dude, and it's going to get worse because...
No, they only got 2 weeks.
It's going to, but I'm saying there's a road that closes Sunday that's pretty important going east to west in the eastern part of the city for some of us.
What's that, 70th and 84th? That area?
Yeah, and Pioneer. I'm pissed. It's going to just screw everything up trying to get to work. Sorry.
I also think it won't be on the level where we'll look back 10 years from now and go, man, that was a great atmosphere. Don't underestimate what UTEP will be like.
It's going to be
I think UTEP will be jacked. There's a lot of people, as we get closer, I think now after you've consumed some information, today will be one of those transition days because they have a scrimmage, and it is a very intense scrimmage today. This is a no BS scrimmage where they will kind of solidify rotations and depth chart positions after today. Also, the single digit numbers are about to come out. And so we are getting closer. And so as we get to the UTEP game, and it's a night game, people are going to be jacked. I think Nebraska's got an opportunity to make a statement. But I can tell you that the buildup is shared by the guys in Lincoln that are practicing. But they got to have a good day today. There's certain elements of Nebraska's program and their team that I need to hear good things about the offensive line today.
Thank you. I wanted to go there. Gary Sharp with us, the Iron Horse Weekend Edition, Hail Varsity Radio. That is pretty key today, isn't it? Not just left tackle, but just having a day where your front line offensive line, as good as your defensive front is, you're going against, you got to have some success today, don't you? You got to have some steps forward where it isn't X, Y, and Z living in your backfield. You've got to put some drives together, right?
Yeah, embrace it. Nebraska lives in a world where they have a top 5 defensive line. Their defensive line is better than Iowa's defensive line, and Iowa's known for their defensive line. But to win in this league, I know in this state, you'll say, man, we got to build up the 5 up front to protect the quarterback. I'm telling you, I think Nebraska has a better chance to continue and sustain being a top 5 defensive line in the Big Ten, where Oregon, Ohio State and Michigan have unbelievable defensive line. They have NFL guys. They might have the 1, 2, or 3 best players in this league defensively. Sorry, Will Johnson of Michigan. I know you're involved, but you play linebacker. But you look at Penn State has a great defensive line. Oregon has made a commitment to the trenches. Nebraska's defensive line, which I think will wreck UTEP in 2 weeks because UTEP's offensive line is all over the place. Iron sharpens iron. I need the Nebraska offensive line to be sharpened by the Nebraska defensive line because in moments of team activity, the Nebraska defensive line has eaten. They've eaten pretty well. So today I would like to hear that Matt Rhule said, man, our offensive line, not left tackle, not right tackle, as a fivesome was really, really good. And most importantly, protected Dylan Raiola. The run blocking is going to be okay, or it's serviceable. It'll get better than it was last year, and it wasn't bad. The biggest key is the pass blocking for the fivesome, not just one guy, but the fivesome in pass blocking.
Are we ready to put Turner Corcoran in pin at that left tackle spot? Is it still in pencil? Is that a real competition, or do you think Turner Corcoran's just going to be the guy? I mean, you hear a lot of positive things about Seagren and Gatula both.
I think it's Turner's going to start. And the thing, like, this is also the transition year on the offensive line. I think it's important for the five that they have, because I think they can get five together. I think their guards and center and Benhart are going to be really good. Mm-hmm. Turner, I would like to see if Turner can find the magic of the COVID championship week game at Rutgers, which it's amazing. That night in Rutgers in the middle of December in 2020, you went, that's an NFL guy. Remember, he started for Hymas. Hymas was injured. It was the first true freshman to start at that position. And we went, wow, have never been able to get back to that. So I think he's going to start, but it's important this year for Nebraska to develop depth at tackle, whether it be Gatula, Seagren, Kanak, all of those guys, but develop depth across the board where, guys that get to play a bit this year, that when we roll around to next spring, they're good to go. It's just not a bunch of newbies, but they need to, that fivesome needs to play together. And today I want to hear that, man, we were able to run the ball and we were able to protect Dylan, so he was able to sling it all over the place. If I hear that, I'm like, okay, they've made an adjustment from the last couple of weeks of practice.
Just from a psyche standpoint, don't you need a day like that, Sharpie? If you're Dylan, if you're the offensive line, if you're Sat, if you're, Glenn Thomas, if you're the offense, you want to be able to call what you want to call, to highlight this vast group of receivers, to use this running back room, to really get some matchup issues at tight end with Bonner or slot with Carter Nelson, and then your tight ends. You've got a lot of toys to play with if you're Nebraska's offense. But man, you better make sure that step one is to keep your franchise healthy.
Yeah, and then to keep the offense on schedule. Where they're not falling behind the sticks and they keep moving down the field. And I think they'll be able to do that. And the thing about this offense is, I don't think this is a difficult offense. I don't think I've heard anybody since Satterfield has been here go, yeah, we're really struggling with installment. Okay. Even the quarterbacks last year, no one ever said we can't do this because they're struggling. They couldn't do certain things because one was more of a run guy than a pass guy. But I think the offense has been pretty easy to pick up. Now, the one thing that you've seen with Dylan is Dylan has a great command of the offense. So they're not throwing him a curveball when they get in the headset and say, hey, run this. But I think it's important, even like today, to be on schedule. All right, to be in a rhythm. I will tell you another sneaky thing, guys, and I don't know if you've sensed this as well. Remember last year, we spent all this time talking about why can't Nebraska play complementary football? When the defense, in quick change defense, comes up and they get a 3-and-out after they had to get on the field because you turned it over and they give it right back to the offense, how come the offense can't take advantage of that? We talked ourselves blue in the face that Nebraska struggles with complementary football. We're going to do that again this year. But isn't it interesting? And I think if we're going to keep this as an offensive conversation, could they have complementary position groups where the running back benefits the quarterback, the offensive line benefits the quarterback, vice versa, for the first time in a while, where everything seems to be in sync instead of one position group is much greater than the other, and you're just hoping the other one will, maybe you could lift it up.
Yeah, you're going to need to. Yeah, that conversation needs to be about the quarterback and run game helping one another, the balance part being more balanced, and Rhule's talked about that on offense. Did that with the Big Ten Network this week. But no, you've had to overcompensate so many times over the last several years with some stud you bring in, and that overcompensation's also bled into a young guy having to come in and be a hero. Kind of a similar situation this year, but at least the surrounding parts are upperclassmen with some talent. And Sharpie, they are super confident. Guys have earned it. These young guys, we were talking with Vogues about, 5 of the freshmen that may wow this year. They've done nothing to dissuade that opportunity. They've gone out and earned it as legit best options, not, hey, let's play this guy to keep him around. The mentality is way different.
Yeah, I liked your conversation about true freshmen. This is a team that, okay, first of all, it starts at the top. So you have a staff that likes to coach, and you have coaches that coach hard. I mean, Rhule's not an easy guy to play for. Okay, he's got a lot of accountability that he puts on your shoulders, and you better live up to it. And he wants you to be the best version of yourself. So they coach these guys hard. I've noticed something that Brandon said. If you look at like Amari Sanders and Caleb Benning, who were mentioned yesterday, Amari Sanders very subtly got mentioned by Rhule last week, and we moved on. And then Tony White mentioned him. John Bullock mentioned him, and he went, They are coaching. John Butler is a guy that likes football, that coaches guys hard, and has guys in his defensive back room that like to be coached like that. You have two guys that were mentioned yesterday as potential true freshmen that could play. They didn't show up in January. They showed up at the end of May. So there's something about the coaching that a guy that gets here and has only been in the program for 2 months and probably has had Evan Cooper as long as they've had John Butler as a position coach that might get on the field. I think that shows you the behind the scenes that guys are responding to the coaching. And now what will that do? What button will they push? Because I guarantee, and even myself, all of us, we weren't sitting here going, you know what? I think against UTEP, Amari Sanders might have a chance to play at cornerback. No.
Gary, as we talk about that defensive back room here briefly, John Butler, it seemed pretty hand in glove, his fit with Matt Rhule's system and what Matt Rhule's trying to build. Do you think the pecking order in that defensive back room has changed at all? I mean, it does feel like we knew going into camp who 3/4 of the starters are going to be, if you call it the true 5 defensive backs. Do you think that pecking order has changed at all? The opposite corner spot from Tommy Hill is still a question mark. Buford seems like the top candidate, as we kind of got into early on the show. But you have a couple of guys in Sire Wright, Amari Sanders, Bly Hill that are all going to be vying for playing time as well. Do you think that pecking order has changed at all, though, since John Butler has showed up and gotten his eyes in the room?
I don't think so, Elijah, but I think that the pecking order at the top, where it was very competitive, the competitiveness of the young guys that are here has also elevated. I mean, it's first of all, there are, I think if you bumped into somebody on the street in Lincoln, they would tell you they're a scholarship defensive back in Nebraska. I mean, there's like 4,000 guys that are scholarship defensive backs. So not everybody can play. And I think from what I was told about John Butler, again, he likes ball. He likes talking ball. You got a lot of high football IQ thinkers in that room that like to talk ball, not just play, but they want to know the why. Like all of them know, hey, tell me how I need to do this. My sense in the defensive back room is there are kids that are asking, okay, why are we doing this? Why can I do this and get here? And John Butler is that kind of guy. So a new person that has no prior relationship with any of those guys, they didn't sit down. Tony White didn't sit down and go, hey, that's your cornerback. That's your rover. That's your safety. That's your nickel guy. They just said, you make your own assessments. And so then that kind of opened up the door for guys that maybe were not doing so well. They're like, man, it's go time. We got a brand new guy. Let's go out there and let's bust it to see where we are in the pecking order. And then, but though there are some players that probably have fallen off because they are not responding to the kind of coaching they are getting. I think it's great. I think he is. Nebraska got so lucky with John Butler. And I'm not afraid to say lucky, because you make a transition from a very popular defensive back coach that also recruited a lot of those guys. So he was in your parents' living room, and all of a sudden he's gone. And you're like, okay, we got to keep it moving, but who's going to help drive because we're all underage? And you get this guy that is ideal for that room. I mean, Nebraska got lucky. And I think it's going to pay off as the season unfolds, where more young players pop onto the radar and you go, okay, I see where we're going with this. That's a really good position coach. But how many of them are going to play? You know, I want my best on the field at all times. That's the thing that they're going to, like, today will be one of those days where they finally make decisions of, okay, we've made it through the dog days of camp. Now we have a major scrimmage. Your body is hurting. Who is out there to go that extra mile? Because if you do, 2 weeks from today, you might find yourself playing before the game gets out of hand.
Gary Sharp with us, weekend edition. It's Hail Varsity. We're powered by Cornhead Lager. The pups are out as they race through, and they are excited for 2 weeks from today with college football and the Big Red back at it. So Nebraska's stockpiled so much talent. They've gotten guys ready. The guys have gotten ready. There's that demand, and everyone's on the same page with it. Gary, two guys that we have had a chance to talk to and cover from afar that are really highly invested in college football, Urban Meyer and Colin Cowherd. Last 5 minutes of Cowherd's show on Thursday. I mean, we're talking pulling the grenade pin, throwing it out there, and it's a love fest for Nebraska and that surprise team, that makes some noise team. And they both want Nebraska to be a good football program. Cowherd remembers covering him back in the 90s, seeing him, right? And then Urban, of course, you know, with his conversations over the years with Coach Osborne. What did you think of that with both those guys on such a national level spending time on Nebraska? And it seemed a little bit more than just the, hey, let me throw this out here into the water. Let me chum the water of Nebraska fans.
Don't you guys think Urban Meyer's still trying to get the Nebraska job?
Well,
can we do two things real quick?
Didn't Trev talk to him at length, sit him down, not just for the job, but just probably pick his brain?
You're right. So Trev just he was looking for some names and also an outsider assessment of what and so I know a little bit about the conversation. It was not tell us where Nebraska should be. Tell me where Nebraska is right now, and then a name or two that you know of that could help that situation. Yeah, it was more of a Herb, what do you think? But remember, guys, remember that time where we went through that stretch in 2022 where Urban Meyer was going to be the coach at Nebraska, and then Deion Sanders was going to be the coach at Nebraska. Remember those fun times?
I do, but I think all the folks that Trev talked to came back with the dude, you got to go get that Rhule guy if he's available.
Yeah, Trev was familiar with Matt Rhule. And Trev said, we need a guy that is a builder because we'll give them time to build, and also somebody that is a developer. So they didn't look at what he was doing in Carolina, which, you know, it was a mistake. Matt Rhule got humbled. Sometimes you got to get humbled. Matt Rhule being a failure at Carolina and in his first year at Nebraska. Now, I'm not going to say a failure last year, but not winning actually is going to benefit Nebraska because I think he's a guy that does a lot of self-scouting and they're not delusional. They've addressed what happened when he made the transition to the NFL, and they've also addressed what happened last year. So those things actually could benefit Nebraska. Is that Matt Rhule struggled at Carolina, struggled last year, but he fit everything that Trev was kind of looking for that Nebraska needed. Instead of and I'll give credit to Trev here, and I know you're not supposed to, but Trev hired a football coach for Nebraska, not for himself. I thought we've gone through athletic directors at Nebraska that have hired a football coach for themselves, not for the program. Not knowing what the locker room was, what the program needed. You just wanted a guy that you could work with instead of a guy that needs to work with the most important thing, and those are the young people that are in that locker room.
Well, as you go back 20 months, it's kind of wild here to think like the discourse was Urban Meyer, Mickey Joseph, a small contingent of people saying Luke Fickell. 20 months later now, it all seems like such an afterthought whenever you have Matt Rhule in charge. Like, I think it's pretty clear to me, and I say this before Nebraska's made a bowl game, but it seems clear to me that Nebraska made the right choice in that cycle. And it's just weird to go back.
You finally won a coaching cycle.
Weird to think and go back to what the discourse was even a couple weeks before Rhule was hired. It was Mickey Joseph. It was Urban Meyer. Some people out there were saying Dion, but not many. Some people were saying Luke Fickell. But Matt Rhule is such an afterthought. And to be 20 months later now and to see where Matt Rhule has taken the program already, having not made a bowl game, I understand. But it's just kind of wild to think about.
You know what, Elijah? That's a great point. And think about it. Let's use – because – Nebraska and Wisconsin, as long as Rhule and Fickell are at their respective schools, are going to always be attached. And then let's throw Dion in here. If you look at those three hires in the cycle a couple of years ago, all three athletic directors got exactly what they wanted. Colorado wanted someone to bring relevance to their program. Remember, they've had 2 winning seasons in the last 16 years. Okay? So they wanted someone to bring attention. They got exactly that. Wisconsin and Nebraska wanted somebody that was good at developing, was an adult in the room, and could recruit and would be a fit with the culture. Wisconsin and Nebraska got exactly who they wanted. That doesn't always happen, but I think in those three schools, what the athletic directors were looking for, they got what they wanted. They got exactly what was good for the program. Now, Nebraska and Wisconsin, their wants much different from what Colorado wanted.
Sure. Gary Sharp with us, the Iron Horse Weekend Edition. Sharpie, we will wind it down and be ready to rock and roll for just 1 week away. Can't wait. You're a saint for helping folks move during the week. And I know you're geared up, ready to put the eye black on, and can't wait to get after it again next Saturday. And then as we all descend on the single barrel for the pregame Weekend Edition.
It's happened quickly. Again, all of us have talked every Saturday of this is one of the most anticipated, most optimistic seasons that people have had around here. And this week is this is the dog days of camp week. Like you've been around guys for a while, your body hurts, it's starting to warm up, and you're like, there's kind of a light at the end of the tunnel. Because then next week, in past years, the way the camp and school schedule worked, you would have a week of school before you got into game week. Now, Nebraska has 1 more week of practice before you get into school. So game week is actually the first week of school. So as a coach, you're like, okay, now we got to balance these guys, trying to balance a schedule and, practice in the morning, go to class, all of those kind of things. So this is the week where you separate a lot of guys that love football, love this week, and they grind through it. Now, can they bring other guys with them? That's why I always say this. And if you watched last week, after what I said, listen to Rhule, but look at his body language. He was a guy that was kind of tired. I want to see him today with a little more pep in his step, which I think he will. And then also, what got him excited about today. And then we go from there. And then let me ask you this, because I know one more thing. Kranick isn't here. So single digit numbers are getting close to being revealed.
Mm-hmm.
Are we sure that everybody that had a single, and I'm not saying this negatively, I'm just posing this as a question for both of you, that every guy that finished the year with a single digit number that had eligibility that is back will keep their single digit number? Because wouldn't that be a slap if you were like, hey, you were 8 last year, now you got to go find a new number?
They'll have an opportunity, but they listen, if someone doesn't retain it, they really botched it. I mean, this staff will taketh away, I guess is what I'm saying. they'll absolutely take away if they don't think someone's earned it.
And Matt Rhule kind of said, he was briefly asked at the end of a press conference, like kind of in passing, when we talk about single digit numbers, like the guys that have it last year, do they get it back this year? And Matt Rhule, I believe what he said verbatim was if they've earned it, I believe was what he said. I think based on the guy, I mean, Jeff Sims didn't come back. That's the one guy you'd think of maybe didn't earn it. But that was an unnecessary shot at Jeff Sims, and I do apologize. But like, do you think of the guys that are coming back that earned a single digit last year are all the guys you think of as pretty much leaders of this football team, and you don't think that they would lose that? So I would venture to say that the guys that had it last year will have it again this year. Does it really matter? Does it really matter? I asked the question. Not really. It doesn't really matter who's the single digit number, but Gary's take.
I think
it matters.
And you're right. Guys that had the single digit that were eligible have been leaders from the jump.
Yeah.
Okay. And I don't think they've done anything to lose it. But those are guys that, whether they have a 0 or 2 on their back, they have to up their game as a player, and like Hutmacher and Robinson and Gifford have to be better this year. And if they are, that is just another plus for Nebraska. Everybody will be very curious about the quarterback if he has earned a single digit, and if he does, I think it says a lot about the culture that they currently have, his DNA, and where Nebraska is going. Because if you watch, it's amazing. And I know we've all had a chance to watch some an 1890 practice, some open viewing. If you looked on the field, you would not know that the quarterback is a true freshman that has never played a college football game. He course corrects wide receivers. They talk after maybe a missed pass or a route that wasn't run right or something he did. He just has such a command. But it would say this. In the past, remember, this is a football program that used to stick the freshmen in the North Stadium locker room. And freshmen were not really part of Nebraska football unless they were exceptional. It's changed as football has changed. But, internally, they make new guys earn it. But they're also, the older guys are very accepting of the new guys. It's not like, oh, he's a freshman, we're going to haze him. Now, there's stuff that goes on internally of, hey, you got to earn it. But I think everybody is in for the greater good. And I haven't, there are teams where I didn't sense that. And so if a true freshman receives, and this is a big deal internally, I mean, the players take this seriously. There's a reason why they put out that graphic during summer of, what is it? The Elite of the Week. I can't remember what it was, but they list a number of players. It's a big deal because you're recognized by your peers. And so if a true freshman gets one of those, I think it's a big deal. I think it's a big deal. Not only it shows you the guy that's going to play quarterback, but I also think it shows you what kind of a program they have and who sets themselves apart to get that kind of a coveted single digit number. And it's about leadership, but not just with the voice, but by the actions.
Gary, if Raiola is a single digit number guy, what do you say to the fans that have already bought their Raiola number 15 jersey?
Buy another?
Well, I mean, go buy number 1. Go buy number 7.
Those numbers are both available, aren't they?
So if he would have gone to Georgia, he'd be wearing 7 because Stafford said he could, but he also has worn 1.
Yeah.
7's turned out to be a pretty good quarterback number at Nebraska.
Yeah. No, I like that.
Eric Crouch, Jeff Sims. Yeah, because if Jeff Sims can earn a single digit number, Dylan Raiola can earn a single digit number.
Yeah, I mean, hey, guy played for a national championship in 7. Guy won a national championship in 7. 7 to me is like a good quarterback number. That's why when you see Gramstad wearing 19, you're like,
the old Bertie Kosar tribute goes real well around here. Sharpie, we'll do this again, brother. I appreciate you.
Gary, one more thing.
No, dude, I've got people delivering stuff here.
This is a quick one.
Being invaded. Gary,
your name here on the stream. We encourage anyone to check out the Saturday morning video edition. Hail Varsity Radio YouTube is where you find that. I should say Hail Varsity YouTube is where you find that. To search up Hail Varsity Radio. You can find it that way as well. Your screen name says last Hail Varsity Saturday without college football in 2024. Let me ask you the question. What's the proper way to spend the last Saturday without college football? And then as a follow-up, what's the right way to spend the first Saturday with college football next week as we have the Ireland game?
One without, I would, sit your significant other down and just tell them that there is the fall breakup is about to happen. Or if you are lucky, like a lot of us are with the women in our life, they also like the game of football. Maybe get the extra mow in, and then maybe treat yourself. Then next week to prepare, I would get up in the morning and, hopefully when you fall out of bed, it's not, like you don't trip over football and it's a bad onside kick to get ready for the game in Dublin, But it's back. I mean, we've made it. We've made it, guys. I mean, it's unbelievable. All this offseason, we've finally made it.
Can't wait for it. It's going to be a magical 2024. Well, we say that every year. It's going to be a magical season, but it's going to be fun. It's going to be so interesting.
This year is different because there's I think because you have, going to something we talked about earlier about Urban Meyer and Colin Cowherd talking about Nebraska. You have a football coach in Nebraska who's the best PR coach that the university's ever had. He likes talking to people. People like him as a football person. He's well respected. There's nobody taking shots at Rhule that are real football coaches because he respects the game. I think when you see a football coach that respects the game, other people that are on that level in the industry, they have great respect for you. And Rhule, I mean, it's when you go to the NFL, you have and you're a head coach, there's a respect on a different level. So people like Matt Rhule, and Matt Rhule then is able to talk to a lot of people. He's a good interview. He talks about his team, and people then open up the door and go, oh, okay, I see what's going on here, your past history and what you have in place. So that leads to this buildup. I know there's going to be like a lot of people are excited. It is kind of if you put the vibe on people, it's like hesitation, excitement, because you want to see it. You've been burned so many times in the past. You are believing it. You just want to see it. You can get the sense that there's a vibe, there's something brewing there, but you have to see it. And once you see it and it looks like what you think it should, then it's like 100% through the wall, all of that kind of stuff. That's what 2 weeks from today needs to be for Nebraska, that it looks like good football and things that have been discussed that we're working on, like turnovers, that looks different when you take the field in 24.
Gary, that would be an eloquent way to end the show if I didn't have one more question for you.
Yes.
David Sanders Jr., what will your reaction be when he picks Tennessee later this afternoon?
Tennessee is able to put guys in the league. They have a history of putting guys in the league, and they've been winning.
Does that recruitment continue until signing day in December, as a lot of people seem to think?
I think until there's a signature, I think you recruit. Now, I wonder when he makes his decision, and everything says Tennessee and their past relationship, Nebraska did everything except for they were a little bit later to the party. I mean, I don't think Nebraska is going to look in the mirror and go, man, we failed here. They did everything possible, but they're going to pay for past sins of only selling sunshine instead of success. But there's, with Tennessee, they got the NIL, they got guys in the league, they got some recruiting momentum, they've been winning. I think the family has kept in touch with schools that have been recruiting their son. So, who knows? The one thing that is important nowadays is you never burn bridges. If a top recruit says no to you, you say, hey, it has been great getting to know you. It's been great getting to know your family. You got to know about us. And if we can help you with anything, just let us know. It used to
Best
not be that way.
wishes. Yeah. Doors open.
You would lose a player and you would burn that bridge and throw the kid under the bus, and the Greyhound would run over him, and then the Megabus would show up and run over him. But now you keep that door open of, hey, if just us, we know you. If there's anything we can do for you, let us know. And you never know. I mean, in this day and age. But he's a really good player. I think Nebraska did everything they could. Because of this recruitment, they got their NIL in order to play that game, if that makes sense, where they realize that if we want to go to that level, we got to get things aligned and do things differently. And they were able to do it. They just might come up with the bridesmaid's dress again, and we would be in a movie.
Yeah,
You guys ever watch that movie, 27 Dresses?
I did not, thankfully.
Okay.
Maybe
watch it with the wife on the last weekend of football without football.
That's part of the punishment slash time spent. Sharpie, again, brother, love the insight. Appreciate your time. Incredible. It's the Iron Horse, Gary Sharp, and we'll check in again soon. Gary, have a good weekend, brother.
Hey, thanks, guys. Love you as always.
Appreciate you. There he is, Gary Sharp with us. Elijah Herbel, Chris Schmidt. Like and subscribe. Hail Varsity YouTube, Hail Varsity Radio, Twitter at HVarsity Radio. A lot of ground covered. Back at it Monday at 4. Thanks.
Wait. Call your shot, Schmitty. What are you shooting today?
Which time? I got 2 rounds.
No way. You're playing 36 today?
Taking the kid here in an hour.
I'm
playing at 2:20 with Dolman. So I'm playing 36 today.
First round will be a warm-up, so give me your score prediction for round 2.
59. 59 for this morning.
59?
For 9.
Okay.
It's a par 3. Could get ugly. I'm gonna shoot a 98.
98. Okay. Let's see. Break 100. That's all you got to do.
Yeah, I'm working on it.
All right.
4 o'clock Monday. Back at you on Hail Varsity.